Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Hazel Nima. If you're new here, I'm your host, and you are in the 2 or 3 pod where God is in our midst. If you're not new here, if this is your second time, if this is your, I don't know, 15th time, welcome back. I'm so excited to talk to you again, to have a conversation. This is part 3 of the 4-part series that we've been diving into in the month of January. And I'm honestly so excited for this episode because it really spoke to me. It's a word that I was looking for outside of being fortunate enough to relay this message to someone else. I needed this for myself. The power of a good work ethic. Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 29. Do you see a man skillful and experienced in his work? He will stand in honor before kings. He will not stand before obscure men. I really love this verse. The first time that I read it, what popped up in my mind is the fact that we'll be known by what we are most consistent in. We'll be known by what we're most consistent in. The verse is talking about a man who is skillful and experienced in his work. And definitely this is in the positive light. But the fact and the reality of the matter is, we'll be known by what you are consistent in, even if that's not good. And for the person who's known by something positive and admirable, they will stand in honor before kings, people of reputation, of status. They'll be honored by such people, and they'll not stand before obscure men. Obscure men refer to people who don't really have recognition in society, people who have little status. And so I just thought of it even in the reverse. If you're not skillful and experienced in your work, if you don't put your mind to something and actually do it with all of your heart, as though you're doing it for the Lord, because it also reminded me of that verse. If you're not doing that, then you will stand before obscure men. That's where your status and your name will remain. That's why it will reach, and you will not stand in honor before kings. I always love looking at verses in the opposite light. It's also a verse that reminds us of the character of the God in which we emulate. The God who created the heavens and the earth and everything within it in a mere 6 days. The wisdom, the creativity, the hard work that it took. That's the God that we emulate. It reminds us that God doesn't just care about what you're doing in the spiritual, or rather in the kingdom. Because remember, our callings on earth are in every single field that exists in this world, from medicine to engineering to art. In every single field, we as children of God are called into. And God expects that we'll work in those fields. We'll work at them with diligence, with discipline. Do you see a man, that man who's skillful and experienced in their work, in their area of expertise, in their field, in their career? He will stand in honor before kings. Not only does God honor hard work, but he makes sure that people on earth will honor us. So in light of all of that, what will you choose to be known for? We talked about entering into our disciplined era, and we explained that there's a difference between having goals and actually setting systems that will allow you to attain those goals. And in simple terms, we talked about where you want to be versus where you currently are based on your habits. So today we are going to circle back and talk about how to bridge that gap, how to apply wisdom in bridging that gap, how to make the most out of the opportunities and the resources that we have at our disposal to reach where we want to be. We want to talk about not just doing what you know you should be doing, but what to do when you all too often feel like giving up. So let's jump right at it. As someone who wants to build up a habit, as someone who wants to build up their work ethic, you need to recognize that it doesn't just start instantly. You don't just go from 0 to 100 in one day, in 1 week, 1 year even. To build up a habit, you need to break another. And many a times, you need to break a couple, multiple habits for you to reach that place where you want to be. And that doesn't take 1 day. And as someone who wants to actually integrate this in their own life, I got to realize something quite helpful. 1 hour of work in a day. Just think about it. 1 hour. Out of the 24 that we have at our disposal, 1 hour might seem like it's not much. But if you think about how it compounds over time, 1 hour a day for a week has already compounded to 7 hours of work. 7 hours that you otherwise would not have gotten. And the thing is, we have this mindset whereby if we're not doing something for a prolonged and focused period of time, we tend not to do it at all. We don't really think much of 30 minutes in a whole day. We don't think much of 10 minutes in a whole day. But what we don't realize is it's not really about the time or the period of time that you take in doing something. It's about how many times you can do it and frequent that activity so much so that you're actually training your system to build up a habit. Going back to our example, if you can't look short term, if you can't think much of that 30 minutes or 1 hour, then motivate yourself to think long term. Don't look at it as 1 hour. Think of it as 7 hours of work a week. Don't look at it as 30 minutes in a day. Look at it as 14 hours in that whole month. And honestly, if you put your mind to something for 14 hours, do you know how much more fit you would have gotten? How much writing you would have done? You know how much work you would have put into that project? 14 hours. That's why we're saying that if you can't look short term, motivate yourself to look long term. And also got to realize that this takes wisdom. Because the Bible even tells us in Ephesians 5 that we should make the most of the opportunities because the days are evil. We ought not to waste away at our days because it's much easier to scroll for 30 minutes than it is to start a venture. For you to even recognize those opportunities, your eyes need to be open to what you have at your disposal. And that one thing that we all have, we literally all have for as long as you woke up under the sun. Well, maybe you're not in the tropics, but that one thing that we all have the moment we wake up is time. Time is something that I got to realize God gave us freely to steward. You might not have money, you might not have influence, you might not have people around you, but you do have time. And that's a constant for everyone. Everyone has 24 hours a day. And it takes wisdom to know how to maximize each and every single hour, minute, and second of our days. It's not just 30 minutes. And that's what you need to open our minds to. Just because you won't get that work done in one sitting does not mean that you won't have moved in the 30 minutes that you actually do get. Sometimes you don't have the luxury of focus time for a whole 5 hours. And even if we do, even when we do, it's not like we always finish the work that we set our minds to. But if you're building up a good work ethic, if you're building up a habit of discipline, you need to do it even on the days when you don't have the 5 hours. You need to do it on the days when you can only get 10 minutes in, because that is you encouraging yourself. That is you speaking to your system that this is something that we must do regardless. And we don't get to realize that this is something that we already put into our days. Most of them are just subconscious. So how do we make what is very conscious, what is very difficult, become subconscious? You start small. And all of this are principles that I also got from the Atomic Habits book. But I was so excited to know that the Bible literally backs up all of this. Proverbs chapter 12 and verse 27. We're being told that the lazy man does not catch and roast his prey, but the precious possession of a wise man is diligence, because he recognizes opportunities and seizes them. Diligence. And I was reading another verse about diligence. As I said, this is something that I was also looking for. for myself. And it came to me at a time when I was telling God that I really do not feel like reading, studying, that is, because we have exams coming up. And just almost the whole week I was struggling to focus on just the aspect of reading. My mind was so scattered into projects, into all the other personal things that are in my life. My mind was everywhere, and I could not gather the stamina nor the focus to just pick up a book and read. And a word came to me. I can't really remember the verse, but it was in Proverbs. And that was God telling me that I literally am a steward over my time. And God has given me so much in terms of opportunities, in terms of resources, because time in itself is an opportunity. I had to will myself to remember how much I was wishing that we would get time to read, that we would get time to study. At the end of the day, I don't want to fail. I mean, I'm very much aiming for an A. So I had to will myself to go back to that time when I wanted the time. But now I do have it, and I don't want to make the most of this opportunity. I feel like I experienced what God says in His Word when He says that He rebukes His children. Rather, he disciplines His children and rebukes those He loves. I don't know if it's the other way around, but in that moment, I experienced what that verse probably means, because I never saw it in that light. It just seemed like God was telling me, what do you want me to give you? Like, you have the wisdom, you have the mind for it, you have the resources at your disposal, you have the time for it, and then you don't feel like reading. And we're actually going to talk about that aspect of feelings and emotions taking over our actions, which in turn compound to them taking over our lives, determining for us what you do and what you don't do. I was rebuked in that moment. The lazy man does not catch and roast his prey. The precious possession of a wise man is diligence, hard work. That's your precious possession, but only if you're wise. We need to remember that if we don't want to do something productive, if we can't will ourselves to do the things that we know we should do, then naturally, that energy will be spent elsewhere. And most times, the places where we decide to let out our energy in turn drains us. The ironic thing about being disciplined and putting our minds to something is that even though in the moment we feel drained, even though in the moment we are giving way more than we can even will ourselves to sometimes, it's a struggle being disciplined. And even though in that moment it feels strenuous, the end product will always replenish us. If you will yourself to work out, the progress that you get will replenish you. If you will yourself to cook a healthy meal instead of just having the takeout being delivered to you, what you get out of it will replenish you. If you will yourself to study, like I have been, the grades you get out of it will replenish you. And that's the good thing about productivity, healthy productivity for that matter. The energy that you spent in the moment will always come back to you. You know, it's the principle of sowing and reaping. Sowing and reaping. But if you're not doing something productive, if we choose to do something that feels good in the moment, many a times the return can drain us. And the best example of that is social media. It's not strenuous at all. Scrolling is a breeze, a walk in the park. But at the end of the 3 hours that you spent there, you feel drained socially. You probably collected all the anxiety of the people that you've watched. You're looking down on yourself because you found yourself 1, 2, 3 times comparing yourself to what you were seeing. Like many a times, you actually end up being drained, which also brings us to the point of recognizing the help that you can get to build up this work ethic. If you're someone who wasn't used to doing something and you want to be that person who is known for doing something, then you cannot keep hanging out with people who are still in that behavior you're trying to get out of. When we were talking about the power of our circle, we talked about having someone that you can glean from. We talked about how your closest friends must be people that you trust with your secrets, trust with your struggles, people that you can go to and draw motivation from. Proverbs chapter 13 and verse 20 tells us that He who walks with the wise men becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. We also said in the last episode that if you hang out with 5 millionaires, you become the sixth. But if you hang out with 5 drunkards, you'll become the sixth. The Bible is even telling us that hang out with those 5 people and you'll suffer harm. And I believe that that can be expressed in every way possible, in every aspect that you can think about, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, sometimes even physically. We need to be careful of those that we actually surround ourselves with. Because this is the thing. If you're around people who are doing work, seriously doing work, their heads are in their work, in their laptops, in their book, whatever it is, you'd even feel weird being in that room and you're on your phone doing nothing useful. You'd feel weird. You just feel odd. But be in a room where everyone is quote unquote wasting time, relaxing, playing games, whatever it is. And then you come in there with your book. You come in there with your laptop, purporting that you want to study or to work. You will feel weird. And so you need to recognize that our environment actually shapes how we perceive the activities that we're engaging in. In as much as you might still study, you might still work, the next day it's the same. The other day it's the same. Noise levels are high. People are calling you to join the game. Chances are you won't be coming in with your book anymore. And that's just the simplest way of explaining how our companions, our environment actually shapes us. Not only do you get into the rhythm of doing something, but if everyone else around you is doing it, you actually uplift each other on how to do it better. And that's an unrefuted fact. Unrefuted. If every one of you are working towards a common goal, you'll only find more and more ways to better the systems that you put in place. But if you're working towards one goal and all the other people around you are still indulged in the systems that you're trying to get out of, the pull effect would be too strong on you. So we need to check on who's helping us, check on who's surrounding us in these moments. Something else that I was fortunate enough to get a revelation on is the fact that the fruit is not immediate. Even just in the physical realm, if you plant a seed now, today, this week, chances are that next week, you won't even see it above ground. 2 weeks from now, from that time, you'll just see some leaves that look like weeds. So how much longer will it even take for that tree to give out a fruit? I learned something interesting about pineapples recently, that from the moment you plant it to the time it actually fruits takes about 1.5 years. I mean, in 1.5 years, if you are waiting for your pineapple, at that point you would have gone to the grocery and just bought some more pineapples. The fruit is never immediate. And in this analogy that we are using, buying more pineapples isn't bad. I mean, you want your fruits. But when you talk about systems, when you talk about goals, when you talk about real life situations where we want to change our lives, going and buying that fruit is a sign that you're losing confidence and trust in what you're doing. It's not only possible to give up, but it's also possible to lose hope. Now, those two might seem like they're the same thing, but giving up can actually be influenced by how easy you get bored and by how easily you allow yourself to follow your feelings. If for you novelty is a driver, if novelty is something that you've put on a pedestal, so much so that every single activity that you engage in or will yourself to engage in has to bring some form of gratification at the end of it, then you'd be one person who'd be really driven by novelty. And what that means is that staying in the rhythm of boredom would be not only difficult, but almost impossible for you. The fruit is not immediate. We need to acknowledge that consistency is an investment. If you invest money into a venture right now, you cannot suppose that in 1 month you'd have seen meaningful results. You can't suppose that even in 1 year you'd get back even 5% of what you put in. Consistency, likewise, is an investment, and we need to fall in love with that process. Falling in love with the boredom, doing the same thing every day we wake up, every single lunchtime, every single 2 hours, whatever it is for you. Fall in love with that willingness to do something again and again and again. Because even though it might be boring, and I agree that it is boring, definitely, we also need to acknowledge that it's building up the habit. Because guess what? You don't need to think before you brush your teeth. If you've already made it a rhythm and a system in your day, it's automatic, it's subconscious. And that's what we want to do with these things that seem so impossible. By the time we're getting to that point where work for you is like brushing your teeth, you need to stay in the rhythm of boredom, because that's what we did as children, right? If you were that person who was told by your parents that you need to brush your teeth, sometimes even 1 minute seemed longer than it actually was. I say some kids these days actually time their brushing with their teeth. They're just like, let me just get to that 1 minute. Let me just get to that 1 minute. And then when it finally reaches, they actually have to go and report that they did it, because that's something that took energy at one point of our lives. That's how we need to think about this. Brushing our teeth. It's not something that was always automatic. It's not something that was always easy or subconscious. When we were children, this took energy. And guess how many years it took between the time we were children and the time that we're in now, or the time that you're in now? That's consistency. At one point of our childhood, it was boring. It didn't bring us the dopamine that we got from playing outside with our friends. It didn't give us the dopamine that we got from riding our bikes. But we did it until it became subconscious. And that's what you want to do. It's not about how long it takes. It's about how frequent you do it. So let's fall in love with that willingness to do it again, the next day again, the other day again, the next week again. That's how we get it, guys. That's how we get the results. And it's tiring, it's boring, but it's what you are called to do. And actually, talking about callings, we've been talking about this in such a general way. But if you're one person who was actually called into something, it might not even be extravagant. But if you recognize that the season or the place in which you are in right now came supernaturally, then your calling is not just a gift, it's a responsibility. Now, what do I mean by coming supernaturally? For example, if you know that out of the 3,000 applicants who applied for a job or a scholarship or just a position somewhere, out of 3,000 people who you believed were more qualified, not that you didn't believe in yourself, but you know how you can just look at people's resumes. You can just look at how they carry themselves and you're like, this truly is competitive. But out of those 3,000 people, you got in. You cannot suppose that it was your good jokes that swayed the interviewers, because nothing is wasted with God. That in itself, no matter how small it might seem, it's a calling. Even worse when you prayed for it, when you were begging God for it. I've had people in workplaces who keep complaining about how much work they have. You're like, why are you unhappy? Why are you sad? Why? Nini shida? And it's like there's too much work. But sometimes the blessing comes in form of work. The blessing always carries work. How does that saying go? With great power comes great responsibility. And so that place in which you are in, that place in which you prayed to be in, that calling that God revealed to you, it's not just a gift, it's a responsibility. And so for you, for me, and for anyone else who might be in that situation, work ethic isn't just something that you're doing for the sake of building yourself up and building up your discipline. Being diligent in that place is you showing God that He can trust you with more. Work ethic builds trust. Even in our physical realm, there is no employer who is going to promote you if you didn't show that you can actually handle the work that you have right now. Some people even get fired. Some people get stagnant. They're stagnant in the same position of work that they were in when they first joined a company, because no one will trust you if you are not faithful in the little that you had. And it's no different for God. God can entrust you with more when you've diligently stewarded what you have right now. That work is a blessing. and the blessing is work. They're interchangeable, in fact. And so for us, anyone who might be in that situation, you have to stay in the boredom. You have to stay in the rhythm. You have to fall in love with the willingness to do it again and again. In Galatians 6, verse 9, is encouraging us. Let us not grow weary or become discouraged in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap if we do not give in. There's an aspect of getting weary, not only just bored, not only just feeling like giving up or going on to the next pursuit that riles up our dopamine, but there's also the aspect of growing weary, becoming discouraged, because it's not easy putting in the hard work and not seeing any results. Perhaps the results are there, but the progress is slower than you imagined. It's discouraging. But you are being told here that at the proper time, we will reap if we do not give in. And I tried to look at examples of people in the Bible who emulated this fact. Remember the walls of Jericho? That's actually in Joshua 6. I think we can read it. In verse 2 is saying, the Lord said to Joshua, see, I have given Jericho into your hand with its king and the mighty warriors. And verse 3 is saying, now you shall march around the city, all the men of war circling the city once. Once, yeah? And then it's saying, you shall do this once each day for 6 days. Like even just that on its own, one might wonder, as we're reading, it doesn't seem that much. 6 days doesn't seem that much. Going around it once doesn't seem that much. But this is a city. Imagine if you're told to walk around the city of Nairobi, small as it is, you're told to walk around it once every day for 6 days. This isn't just a small circumference that you're talking about. This is a city fortified by high walls. It wasn't a small area. You're being told walk around it once for 6 days. I'm sure someone there, at least one Israelite, was like, why do we have to do it for 6 days? Like, why can't we just walk around it the first day and the walls come down? And then we even continue. Verse 4 says, also 7 priests shall carry 7 trumpets made of ram's horns ahead of the ark. Then on the 7th day, you shall march around the city 7 times. As though the first 6 days were not enough. On the 7th day, we are marching again 7 times. Aye. And the priests shall blow the trumpets. And then verse 5 is saying, when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall cry out with a great shout, and the wall of the city shall fall down in its place. And the people shall go up, each man straight ahead, climbing over the rubble. Guys, the instruction seems very simple, but it wasn't easy. I'm saying it as well as there, but just think about it. Put yourself in that situation. Whatever city you're in right now, imagine walking around the whole of it once each and every single day for 6 days, for a whole week for that matter. And during the 7th day, you have to walk around it 7 times. Do you not think that these people were tired? Do you not think that they at one point asked themselves, is there even any point in this? Because in those moments, on that 5th day, on that 3rd time, on the 7th day, I'm sure you might be like, hey, is the goal even worth all of this? Do we really need Jericho? I mean, we're all right. We're okay the way we are. It's never that serious. I mean, it's so easy to get such thoughts. And I'm even thinking of Naaman. Or was it Naaman's servant? Naaman, the one who was told to dip himself 7 times. The one who Elijah told and didn't even tell him directly. He sent a messenger to tell him, go and wash in the Jordan 7 times. And actually Naaman was like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? Where I came from? And there are better rivers even than the Jordan. Why couldn't I have just done that there? And I'm sure the first time he was dipping himself, he was like, oh my days, this is so embarrassing. Second time he's dipping himself. 3rd time, 4th time. At that point, you need to know that his servant is even the one who encouraged him. We have journeyed for so long. Just do it. Like, this isn't that big of an ask. It might seem silly. I know that you wanted an instant healing, but just dip yourself. Just do what the prophet says. Fifth time, I'm sure Naaman is like, this better be worth it. Seventh time, he gets his healing. And this is just to highlight the fact that results they're almost never instant, because there's something that we're learning in the process. And our unwillingness to continue with the process sometimes can come up as a form of pride. The word of the Lord says that there's a way that seems right to a man, but the end is only destruction. I think of the Israelites even. A journey that should have taken, was it 12 days or just like 2 weeks at most, took 40 years. Do you not think that God would have just let them into the promised land in the 2 weeks? The God who brought them out of Egypt allowed them to cross the Red Sea, literally cross the Red Sea, the same sea that now swallowed all their enemies, like this all-powerful God. Don't you think that he would have just brought them into the promised land? But there was something that they had to learn in the process. And sometimes our unwillingness to learn and to open our minds to what God is doing through us in a certain season, it just prolongs how long it would take for us to see the results. Because God won't let you into the promised land with an Egyptian mindset. As you're building up on your work ethic, as you're staying consistent, disciplined, putting in the work day by day, we also need to recognize that it's not about the physical action. We need to grow mentally. We need to grow spiritually, because the season that we're allowing ourselves into, through the calling, through the blessing that we're in, through the position that we're in, the season that we're being propelled into needs an elevation in all aspects. And that's what we learn in the process. There is grace for every day. His mercies are new every day. No matter how much we might be doing the same thing, putting in the same work, the same effort, the same energy, the result that you were to get from yesterday isn't the same one that you're getting today. And that's why frequency matters. It's not about how long you can do it in one day. It's about how many times you can break it down, how many times you can allow yourself to be indulged in that process, breaking the old habits, chipping at it piece by piece until you're finally building up on this other one. There's power in that rhythm. In due season, we will reap if we do not grow weary. But then again, back to the point of us having resources and opportunities at our disposal. We have people around us. We have a mind. We have a wisdom that God has granted us. We've said that it takes wisdom to stay in this rhythm. Wisdom to know what you should do and actually do it, because that's exactly what wisdom is. But it also takes some form of creativity. It takes you thinking out of the box to remain consistent. Because get this, back to our example of putting in hours a week. If you tell yourself that you want to put in 5 hours of work in a week, ideally, this would look like 1 hour a day for 5 days. But what if you can't get 1 hour a day? Break it down. I used to tell myself that I want to grow closer to God, and I wanted those 2 hours a day. Ambitious. But guess what? Watching a sermon has already given me about 45 minutes of time with God. Praying for 5 minutes in the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon has already given me 15 more minutes. I'm already left with 1 hour. Reading the Bible, even if I don't have time to read the Bible, listening to the audio of the Bible being read for however long has already given me probably 15 more minutes with God. What am I trying to say? If you cannot get it in the conventional way, think outside the box. Break it down. Do you not feel like being productive at all? It's very normal. You've done something for 70 days. It's boring. No results. Today you just feel like laying in bed. Think outside the box. Even when you are in bed, take your laptop and do some research that will boost the progress of what you're trying to work at. Sometimes it takes creativity. And it just takes that mindset that says, no matter what, I will progress in this thing, no matter what. And that's what we need to adopt. Work ethic isn't just about hard work and discipline when it's convenient, because many a time, it's never always convenient. We're not just going to wait for an opportune time. We have the opportune time. We're just not perceiving it. We're not looking at it in a different light. We are made to be creative human beings. This is expressed in everyday life. And lastly, we're just going to talk about the role of God in all of this. As we work towards our work ethic, where does God come in? Of course, He's there every day. He's there every step of the way. He's watching you, just like He was watching the Israelites in their process. The manna each and every single morning. The fact that they walked for 40 years, and the Bible says that their shoes never worn out. Their clothes never got torn. 40 years, you've worn the same clothes. Like, that's supernatural. That's God. And God is with us each and every single step of that process. So we want to look at how to utilize the help that is always with us, how to maximize and to receive the help of God. We've said that number one, we get weary. It's normal to get weary. No results can sometimes tire us, discourage us, have us thinking that we should just go back to Egypt. And it's normal. But what are we saying? Don't grow in it. Be weary, be tired, feel it, but don't grow in it. God has been angry. God has been disappointed by people. Even in the Bible, God has been grieved by people. And so our ability to show emotion is something that we picked up from our Maker Himself. We were made in His image. So it's normal to be weary and to feel it and to feel angry in some situations. But don't grow in it. Don't go to bed angry. That's what the Bible says, right? Don't grow in it. Don't allow yourself to stay in that posture. Because as you're staying there, as you're letting it marinate, we don't recognize that it's slowly changing the trajectory of what you are working towards. And that's what falling into the deceit of feelings is. It's okay to feel a certain way. But if you know in your mind, in your heart, and especially in your spirit, that this is something that I have to overcome, this is something that I have to will myself out of, this is something that perhaps you just have to surrender to God because some feelings are just that overwhelming, then do it. If you know what to do, do it. That's the wisdom. Good work ethic has so many hitches in the process. It's never a linear path. It's never sunshine and roses. Is that the term? I keep missing this term. It's never a bed of roses. Okay, we're gonna search that later. Anyway, it's not about an if you get tired, it's about a when, because it will happen. If you're working towards something and working to be a person that you've never been, you will put extraordinary energy into that thing. So it's a when. It's about a when you get tired. You don't give up. Definitely, you don't give up. But you also acknowledge that the person who brought you into this calling, who brought you into this season of your life, is going to carry you through it. The God that is there with you, even in the darkest of valleys. Just like David said, even though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we won't fear anything because He is with us, His rod and His staff. And I remember reading that a rod and a staff is representative of guidance and protection. Guidance and protection, that's what we have at our disposal. The same God who tells us that even though we go to the depths of hell itself, if we make our bed there, He is still with us. In the lowest of the lows, He is still there with us. It's just about whether we'll ruminate in our own sorrow, in our own weariness, which eventually will cause us to give up, or whether we'll actually tap into the help that we have. Go to God. It's not easy. Even in the smallest of ways. I mean, I felt silly going to God and telling Him that, well, I just don't feel like reading. Like we've been pulled in all directions this semester. I don't feel like going on. Sometimes it's so valid, but there's a difference between staying in that feeling and actually taking it to the person who can actually help you do something about it. In Isaiah chapter 40, I believe, you're being told that in verse 29, it says that He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, He increases strength, that even youths shall faint and be weary. Look at that. It's not about an if, it's a when. Even youths. And back then, youths were these people who would go to battle. People like David, who killed tens of thousands in his youth. Samson, who could, well, he was strong, but he was a youth, and he could tear up a whole lion with his bare hands. Those youths, those Israelites are the ones they're talking about, not the youths of today. I think we're getting a bit weak. Those are the youths that can get weary, and young men shall fall exhausted, but they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. And this is the first time it's actually coming to me in a new light. Waiting on God is all you have to do to renew your strength. It's not even about going to God and asking for the strength. It's about waiting. It's about being in that season of what is happening. I'm not seeing anything happening right now, but you're waiting for the Lord. Instead of being discouraged, you're waiting for the Lord. Instead of giving up and going back to your Egypt, you're waiting for the Lord. And that's how your strength is renewed. You don't even have to do much. It's simple, but it's definitely not easy. But the thing is, we've been given the way out. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. This is beautiful. God is our helper. Our help comes from the Lord, who made the heavens and the earth. God will strengthen us in those moments. We just need to receive it. We need to acknowledge that we have help. I don't know if you've seen or experienced a time when you know how to help someone, you know what to tell them in that situation that will help them. Perhaps you yourself just have the resources. You have the resources to help this person, but they're just so stubborn in their own way. They're just so stubborn. They're like, I cannot receive help from you. I know what I'm doing. And it's actually so frustrating because that show of pride is what's making them suffer. They're choosing to stay in that suffering. And that's exactly how I picture it with God. Us purporting that we can do this thing on our own is basically us choosing to stay in that pride. But God is here. Open hands. Wait on me. I will renew your strength. I am where your help will come from. I'm the one who chose you to do this thing. Best believe that I know the best way in which you can do it. Which just brings us back to what Paul says in Galatians 3. We can't carry out in our flesh. We can't continue in the flesh with what started in the spirit. If it came from God himself, then who are we? Who are we to think that we can do it on our own? As we try and build up on that person that we want to become, as we build up our work ethic, we need to remember where our help comes from. And this is something that I've been fortunate enough to unlock and actually see the fruit of. Because sometimes God won't give you the help in the way that you want. Sometimes time is actually running out. Sometimes that thing that you thought would bring good results actually went completely opposite. But in that moment, the peace that you have, it's unexplainable. The circumstance looks one way, but your peace of mind is in a completely different direction. And that's what happens when you actually let God step into that process. The process isn't always just an upward hill. Sometimes there's the valleys, the ridges, the depressions, the lowest of the lows. But the peace that you have in those situations, the peace that you have in those moments is unexplainable. Peace that surpasses all human understanding. The word of the Lord says that he keeps in perfect and constant peace, the one who keeps his mind on him. In that moment, it's not about you. It's not about your efforts. It's not about how time is running out. It's not about how you feel like you wasted time and money and resources. It's about your helper. It's about your maker that will strengthen you in those valleys. And it's beautiful to experience. I can't even explain it. And as someone who once explained during that episode of Take Some Time to Rest, I keep forgetting my own titles, but I talked about how I struggle with just resting and feeling like I need to do everything and I need to progress and I feel like I'm wasting time. I should have done this during this time. As someone who once was in that state of mind, the peace that I get right now is beyond human understanding. Truly, truly. For me to actually say that I am pressed for time. I am pressured. I am being pulled at all sides, but I'll choose to rest in God. And guess what? Every single time He has shown up for me. That thing that I was so worried about never came to be. That thing that I was pressed to finish never even mattered. I mean, we need to just trust in our help. Genuinely. Sometimes we make the process so hard for ourselves, thinking that we need to be working at this like there is no tomorrow, but we have help at our disposal. So let's just be open to it. Let's put down the pride. Let's put down the self-dependency. It's okay to need help. And it's definitely okay to acknowledge and to accept it. I pray that that would be the reality for each and every single one of us. That we put down everything that makes us weary. There's what already makes us weary in the process. But there's the weariness that we put upon ourselves because we refuse to receive help. Even if it's from other people, receiving help does not make the achievement any less impressive. Sometimes it's like we take so much pride in, I did this, I reached here. Yes, you achieved it. Yes, you got there on your own, but your mental health was in the pits. Your spiritual life was non-existent. Your physical health is deteriorating. All these other effects that come from that refusal to just get help and to accept that it's okay not to be okay. Oh my days. I don't think that was the direction I thought the episode would take, but I'm glad it did. I'm glad the Holy Spirit directed me into things that I did not think of saying, I did not research or plan on saying. And I genuinely hope that someone got the message that they needed to keep pushing, to keep going, and to know that just like God was with the Israelites every single morning, every single night time, He is with you. He is looking at the progress that you're making. He's proud of you. Recently I read this verse, Zephaniah 3:17, and it was so sweet. It said that He will rejoice over you with joy. He will rejoice over you with shouts of joy. The Lord is in your midst. He's looking at your progress. He's looking at all the things that you've died to get to where you are. He's rejoicing over you. And it's just for us to know that we are not alone. To know that all those intimate moments are seen by someone, are seen by a certain being somewhere. It's not in vain. And in due season, we will reap if we do not get weary. So if you've made it this far, thank you so much. And once again, I hope that this encouraged you. As you continue to apply the power of good work ethic, may we also receive the wisdom to know what to do in the process. Don't forget to give the podcast a 5-star rating so that the podcast can reach many, many more people. And have yourself a lovely and amazing, blessed day or night. I hope to talk to you another time. Bye.